Welcome to our time tracking and management webinar today. My name is Matt. I'm a sales engineer here at Bamboo Solutions, and I'll be your guide today. What you see here is a visual representation in chart form of the key functionality of our time tracking management system. We also refer to it as TTM here. If you hear me float back and forth between time tracking management and TTM, that is what I'm referring to. Where I'll start here is I'll start at time tracking management and just give a brief overview of all functions going around in a counterclockwise display of the clock. In our time management, you'll be able to enter time, approve timesheets, view reports, and track cost automatically. We have alerts and reminders. The alerts are out-of-the-box alerts that we have set up for you, and also we have a system where you can create your own alerts. You can alert on your time, on approval, or on any overdue issues. We have security, where you can control, create the permissions of each individual user in your corporation. If you want somebody to have access to submit a timesheet, or you want somebody to have access to administer the whole site, completely up to you. We give you the ability to do it on a user-by-user basis. The integration with PM Central, I'm actually going to talk about that here in a couple other slides, so we're going to skip that for now. Reporting, we have a robust reporting tool with out-of-the-box canned reports already set up for you. It'll just help you with your view data on your actual work, your actual cost, and some variances throughout your cost reporting. We also have process management. You can configure, standardize, and control the time entry and approval process to better suit your needs as a corporation. We try to give you the flexibility and freedom inside of our tool to customize it to fit your processes and environment. Time tracking management is a web-based time tracking solution which supports the ability to distinguish between billable and non-billable hours. Tasks assigned to an employee are automatically added to his or her timesheet inside of the program. There is no need for any further customization inside of it. Timesheet managers can review, approve, or reject timesheets for a particular period. And also we have, as I talked about briefly before, we have alert and reminders, because I know I have missed timesheet approvals before and actually putting in my time before. So it's just there to be safe and make sure that nobody's being micromanaged. So we like to put that in as well. And we also have a robust reporting tool that I'll show you guys later on in the demo. What we're going to do today, today I'm going to demonstrate our time tracking and management system in our standalone version. We also have a version that hooks up into PM Central that I'll discuss a little bit later. We're going to show you how to submit some time, how to approve the time, and I will show you the reporting and a couple other different things you can do with the tool. Also, I will show you the control panel. It's a centralized location that we have some configuration tools in where you don't have to go into the admin box every time. And I'll also show you the configuration checklists for your time and your cost, so you can go and be ready first day if you would like to test out the product. As I talked about briefly before, we have a PM Central integration as long as the standalone mode, which I'll be showing you today. The standalone mode is designed for companies to track hours, time, and cost within our application. We also have cost tracking, budget, and billable hours for different cost codes and rates. All of that is done inside. All the logic and math is done automatically, so all you have to do is input the data, and our tool does it for you. If you're using PM Central or would like to use PM Central with it, then TTM would work great with it as a companion. We integrate it with PMC, so employees can enter their time, but the tasks are managed within PMC itself. And also you can see the timesheets in PMC as well. Even though you submit your time in a CTM, PMC would be the administrator of all the information you would see today. Right now, I'm going to switch screens for you. If you have any questions at this time about anything of the previous slides, let me know. Again, I'm going to show you an employee submitting its time. I'm going to show you the manager submitting his time and then approving the timesheet of the employee. I'm going to show you a few reports. I'm going to then show you the configuration of the tool itself so you can have a better understanding of what it does and the information it would be looking for. So if you bear with me just for 1 second while I switch screens, please allow me to do that. And also, if you have any questions at this time, please feel free to ask them. Alright. What you see here is our main landing page when you go into time tracking management. This is what you'll see every time you log into it. What you see here are 3 different sections. Our first section is our timesheet reminders. For an employee and for a manager, they look a little different. As you can see here, there are zeros under approvers and under unsubmitted timesheets. Those will have populated numbers for a manager. For an employee, they will just be 0 because he does not have any direct reports. What you'll see for everyone, though, is the unsubmitted timesheets. Anyone in the system who will be submitting a timesheet will have to submit a timesheet. If they do not have them submitted, you'll see a number in that field. It will automatically calculate for you when it is past due. Off to our left is our mini calendar. Our mini calendar allows you to select any date that you would like and automatically fly to that timesheet. That timesheet will open and you'll be able to view it. Below that are a list of timesheet links. Everybody will see these timesheet links. Only some of them will be active regarding your permissions and if you have any direct reports. We have timesheet entry and then be able to view your old timesheets, whether they're submitted, approved, or rejected. For your people that do not actually have any direct reports, when you click on it, it still will open a page, but they'll see a dialog that says there are currently no records to display. This is normal out-of-the-box function. It's just there's a placeholder so nobody can manipulate that page that does not have permissions to do so. Again, I'll show everybody the permissions page as we go a little bit deeper into our day. What I'll do now is that I'm going to click on timesheet entry so you all can see what our timesheet actually looks like. This is our timesheet for this pay period. The pay period is up at the top of the screen to the top right. It gives you a by date range. Below you have your total hours and your billable hours. These will automatically update every time you save your timesheet or submit your timesheet. Below that are 2 little arrows where you can go forward or back in time to future or previous timesheets based upon what you're looking for. You can also select the select period where it will bring up a date selection pop-up where you are more than able to select the range you are searching for. What we're going to do now is I'll input some time for you so you can see just how easy that is. We'll select the day that we're looking for and the project that we're looking for. Again, the projects can be assigned to different users and they can have multiple projects. And the other view I'll show you an employee with multiple projects and how to select from them. After you submit your time, you're going to want to make sure that there's a cost code associated with it. You can either choose to not have a cost code or make sure your employees do have one. In my environment, I have it where the employee must put in a cost code at all times. So I'll select 1. If you look up here, you'll see the status is saved. I'll make sure to save it again before we leave, but I just want to touch on this briefly. You'll see statuses of not created when you open a timesheet initially, saved, submitted, approved, and rejected. That's just to keep an idea of what you're doing with your timesheet for future and past and current timesheets. We have the due date above, and then we have our approvers. We have 2 approvers that you can have for each timesheet, your primary report and manager, or your secondary. The secondary is there as a backup just in case he needs to be there if the primary is out of town or is tied up doing something else. Alright, what I'm going to do now is show you a timesheet that I submitted a couple weeks ago that is waiting to be approved, just so you can see what a approved submitted timesheet looks like if you have to go back and look at some past history. What I did is I clicked on the My Submitted Timesheets, and you can see here the name of the employee, the date range that I was in, the status of submitted, the managers that it's being waited on, and the total hours and the billable hours. So that's just a brief little history overview of your timesheets waiting to be approved. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sign out of our employee. And I'm going to sign in as our manager really quickly. At this time, I'd just like to remind you, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. One of the questions that came in, do we have a trial so you can see if it will fit your needs? And yes, we do. We do have a 30-day trial. Again, I'll talk about that briefly later on, too, on how you can go about asking for that, as well as what all you can have. As you can see on our landing screen again, you see the same timesheet reminders, but now they're a little different. We have 5 unsubmitted timesheets, along with 1 waiting the approval of the manager. Again, a little different look and feel depending on your manager and your permissions. Also, depending on permissions, you'll see, as we didn't on the other gentleman, that there are configuration checklists over here. They were not on the previous page. This is because he has permissions to administer the site. The other gentleman did not. So what we're going to do first is, since our manager also has to submit a timesheet, we're going to go into his timesheets. What we have here are 2 tasks and projects waiting for our manager. What we're going to do is add time for those. But what I really want to show you is a timesheet that he has from last week. He was on vacation last week and hasn't submitted his time yet, so we're going to do that today. What we have here is, again, the total hours, the billable hours, but as you can see, there are 3 tasks instead of 2 like on the previous screen. That is because for the tasks we have start dates and due dates. And once a due date is out of scope, it automatically gets removed from the timesheet to reduce clutter and to show that project is no longer active. That project or task is manipulated and can be moved out into the future if it's needed to. Again, I will show you all that in the configuration as well. What I really would like to show you here in our manager is he's set up a little differently. He is actually set to be auto-approved. We have run into many corporations that either do not have an approval process per se, or have very small departments of 1 or 2 people that don't need to actually go through a submitted approval process. So we gave the option to better suit our customers' needs and flexibility to be able to submit a timesheet and have it auto-approved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we are all good. We have our 80 hours. You can scroll around your 2-week period if that is what you choose over here. And then I'll hit the submit button. What you'll notice is our status will go from saved to submitted automatically. Well, to submitted and then approved. If you have any comments for your timesheets, a little comment dialog box will come up. If you worked over an allotted amount of time for some reason, or you needed to be out, or just you had a comment for somebody who would be looking at your timesheet, this is where you would put it. I'm just going to leave it blank, and I'm going to hit OK. Our page will refresh, and you'll see my status automatically went to approved. No other steps need to be taken. His timesheet is submitted and ready for payroll. What I'm going to do now is we're going to go and view clerk's already submitted timesheet. And we are going to go in and just verify that it's all correct, and we're going to submit it. As I said earlier, there are some timesheet comments if you want. His happen to be blank today, but they're there if you'd like to view them. As you can see in our chart, it has every day filled out with what he worked that day, along with what task he assigned it to. He was out for sickness on this Monday, so that is shown here. What we can do is we can click on the value link, and it'll bring up a different page. This page shows you the work done and the work variances. You have your planned work, your actual work, and your cost analysis. This is just to make sure that your employee is charging to the correct area and that you still have the correct amount of work planned and cost planned left in order for that task or project. These are all set on your end. All we do is do the math for you on the back end and provide you with ways to manipulate it. Again, all customizable to you, your tasks, and your needs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our approval page. As you can see here, we've made sure that this is the correct selected time period, and we're going to click on the checkbox. The checkbox selects all columns and rows. If you need to reject something, you have to reject the entire timesheet, not just a line-by-line basis. This will force your employee to redo their timesheet and resubmit it. If an employee has submitted a timesheet in error, you have to reject it. Once you submit a timesheet, it does get sent for approval, and it is no longer editable. So if an employee walks over to you and needs it rejected, please just reject it for them. What we're going to do is we're going to approve the timesheet. Again, the approver can leave some comments if they would like. I'll just say processed, saying that I acknowledge it, and I will press OK. The page will load for you, and there'll be no longer any records to display. So that he is done with his responsibilities as an approver today. However, what we'll do is we'll go over to the report center. I had a question come in if they are able to put in tax IDs or an employee ID number to the resources, and yes, there is. There is a resource ID field when you create all your timesheet resources. I'll show you that a little bit later on when we go through the configurations. But yes, that is a field that you can display and you can enter into. And again, all of our displays, all of our columns, and all of our information are completely editable and customizable to your needs. If you need to add a column or a data list that you need to be able to see or view that we do not show here, you are able to edit that and put it into the environment to better suit your needs. All right, back on the report center, I clicked on the left-hand screen, the report center, and that brought me to our little reporting tool. What we're going to do is we're going to select a report. Again, these are all out-of-the-box reports. No need for any configuration on our end other than some color changes and permissions. Again, I'll show that later, but everything is out of the box that we give to you. So I selected the actual work period. I'm going to select Approve Timesheets. I'm going to change my date just to make sure my timesheets fall in range for the report. Select OK. And we're going to view the report and give it an opportunity to load. It'll aggregate all the data and put it into chart form for you. We have a bar graph and a pie chart for you. It's showing the work variances, the planned work, actual work, and then the work left, and then actual work done. Below is the same information, just in a numbered chart form. If you'd rather see the number table rather than the chart, please scroll down and you'll be able to see that and manipulate that as well. You'll also have indicators just to make sure that you are still within your compliance needs. That's our chart. Again, completely customizable with the coloring and with what actually gets displayed down below. All up to you, all able to fit your needs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over and show you our control panel. This is where you would do some of the administration work in a condensed area. We give you many of our links to setting updates here that we feel are the most used and most needed at any given time. We have our time and cost tracking checklists. This is what we deem as recommended steps for your timesheet at its configuration, just so it can work and feel and utilize our logic to the best of its ability. Below that, we have our timesheet settings, work hours, and administrative time. Again, just different settings that we feel come up very often that we like to give in a centralized place so you're not always going back to the time or cost checklist. We also have our updating costs and updating labor rates. Again, those can be found in the cost tracking checklist, and I'll talk about them later on as we go through our list. Below that, we have our export tool, timesheet tool. What it'll do is it'll export your timesheet into Excel as an XLS file. You'll be able to save that file, manipulate it, and also move it to any other application that uses XLS. So if you like to view your timesheets or anything else you report from, please just export it into an XLS and you can move it anywhere you like throughout the world. Back up again in the top is another link to the report center, just like we have down there. It takes you to the same place that I showed you earlier, where you're able to generate a report and manipulate the values. Below that, we have just a little bit of look and feel changes that you can have. You can change the skin to better customize your own look and feel for your own eye or for a branding standpoint. That will be globally throughout the time tracking application though, so that'll be for all of your employees. Down below, we have a nice feature. When we roll out new upgrades, instead of having to install them again on your server farm and update everything, you can just upgrade here through our manage application, and it'll take effect here without having to go back to your main SharePoint server. So what we're going to do now is I'll go through the configurations. Again, if anybody has any questions for me, please feel free to ask them at any time, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. What you see here is our time tracking configuration checklist. I clicked on it from the control panel. It can also be accessed here from the left. What you see is a list of tasks that we have, along with its priority and what it actually is being used for and what information we're looking for. We will also have a completed area, so you can just keep track of what you're doing, or if you're working with a couple of admins, so you guys do not duplicate the same tasks. We have some that are mandatory priority, and then we have some that are recommended. Even if you don't use them all, we recommend you just going through them just so you have an idea of what we are looking for and what the tool can do. I'll click on the first one and create a timesheet period. And this is just a little overview of what you'll see to make sure your timesheets have a period to start with. Your timesheets will globally have these periods set up for them. Once you put in the configuration, you'll not have to do anything else for the timesheet that I showed you earlier. The number of periods you can create, the date of the first period will start, the length of each period, and then just a naming convention. I just put Y for year and the year. You can put your company's name. You can put whatever you would like. And then you have the next number in a sequence. If you do biweekly and would like to number it in a biweekly format by changing 2 every time, you can. If you want to change it by 10, that's completely up to you. It'll just change the period name and number, as we can see here on the bottom. What you're going to want to do after that is hit the preview button. That'll populate everything in the preview pane, and then you'll create the periods. Once you create the periods, they'll globally be sent out to all the timesheets in your organization. No further timesheet period modifications will need to take effect on a user level. It'll all be administered here, and your employees will be able to submit time at their leisure. I clicked on the left to go back to our time tracking sheet, and now we're going to edit our little timesheet, and I'll show you a little bit about that. What you're going to see when you first go into your timesheet, you're going to see this screen. Don't be alarmed. You're not going to see the actual timesheet the first time. You're going to have to do a little configuration on the back end in order for the timesheet to actually populate. Once it does, it'll populate for everybody. You do not have to go back user by user. So what I did is I clicked on a little caret. It brought open an edit page, and then we're going to click on the time entry web part settings. We're going to open that flyout box, and what you see here is the configuration for our timesheet. It asks you first where it's pulling its data from. You can either pull it from a parent SharePoint list, or you can pull it from a site, multiple site collections by using our Bamboo List Rollup tool that comes with this. As you can see, Bamboo List Rollup is grayed out because I have selected SharePoint list. So let me click on the SharePoint list. And what this is asking for is the tasks and/or projects that will be associated and being pulled into the website. Now, at the top, you select its destination that it's coming from. Here, I just have period /. That is just directing it to the page that I'm on now. Underneath is the list I can choose from. You can choose any list you have that is going to track your tasks. Out of the box, we give you a list called timesheet tasks. So that's what I'll be using. And then you have columns that are displayed, and then you can have the information that it points to. So you can show it in your data display or throughout our tracking management areas. Again, this information will be pulled throughout our application. So just use the list that you are comfortable using and where your data is stored. Next is our administrative time. This is time that does not directly relate to a project or a task. This is like your sick leave and any other vacation or overhead tasks that you might have that are not actually being reported on into a cost tracking mechanism. Again, the same thing. It'll pull from a web SharePoint site that you deem. Again, / for my local. You can choose from a set of lists. Out of the box, we have a list called administrative time for you all, so you don't have to make one on your own. If you do have one already, just feel free to point to it. And then the same as before, you'll have columns and information that you can point to. Next down is our timesheet resource data. This is where it actually pulls the information on who is going to be able to submit and has to submit time. I have it as a timesheet resources. That's just a list inside of your environment here in the time tracking management system. You can also link it to your persons list inside of our Project Management Central application if you do want to configure them together at the same time. I'll show you the timesheet resources list here in a little bit, just so we can have a better idea of what all information we need for an employee. And then inside of the timesheet itself, you're going to be able to configure the columns that you see. If you just want to see the work done and a due date and a cost code to keep it a little cleaner, that's fine. If you need to add columns to this display, that's fine as well. I will show you the column management list as we go forward too. However, when you do update a column, you'll have to come back here to add it, because it will just add it unchecked in the checkbox. You'll have to come back here and recheck the checkbox if you do add one up to, on your own. Again, completely customizable. You can make it look and feel how you choose based upon your needs as a corporation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to our list after showing you how to configure our timesheet, and I'm going to show you how to configure the working hours. The working hours are based upon whether or not you're going to allow overtime and what days of the week you're allowing your people to work. Again, if you're a Monday through Friday shop, you can just choose Monday through Friday. If you have people working Saturday or Sunday, though, they will have to have Saturday and Sunday available and checked. Those will be those are global options. You're not able to distinguish that on a per user basis. So if you do have a person or persons working on the weekend, those will have to be checked. In order to validate someone who has overtime, or if they don't have overtime, you can choose how you go about validating that. You can either do that by working hours per day or per week. Again, completely up to you how you want to administer your non-overtime employees. That's just a little bit on our work days and working hours. Again, I'll show you how to make somebody an overtime or overtime employee when we go talk about our timesheet resources. What I'm doing now is I'm taking you to our permissions page. I talked earlier a couple times about how everybody will have a different look, feel, and permissions to the site itself. Like I said earlier, some will see the checklist, some will not. Again, completely up to you on who you want to have control. The first one is our auto-approved timesheets. This is the users that I have deemed that don't have to submit a timesheet for approval. They will just submit a timesheet and it'll be auto-approved. This is where you would put that person's username. That's all you have to do for that, no other configuration, and that person will have an auto-approved timesheet. We also have bulk approvers, where if somebody has to approve a multiple timesheets at once, you can put them in that category. We also have our report administrators and members. Those people will be able to view, create, and report with our reporting tool. Again, you can choose who has access and who does not, completely up to you. We also have some visitors, members, and owners groups. Again, completely up to you what you want to do. You can add groups if you would like, or change the permission level of them as well. what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our checklist, and we're going to just show you some configuration on the actual reporting tool itself. I mentioned earlier that you can change the color and the look and feel of it, so I'm going to show you how that is done now. Again, we're going to go to Page and Edit Page, just like we did for our timesheet. Give it a second to load. We're going to hit our little caret again and edit it. Again, wait for it to refresh itself. And again, if you have any other questions, please feel free at any time to ask me. I'll be more than willing to answer your questions for you all. I clicked on the Report Center web part button, and it gives you, again, the same little flyout window that we saw before, but this time it's to configure the report. And what you see here in the permission settings is you can grant who is going to have access to the Report Center. Again, you can either give them group membership or personal membership, and it's completely up to you if you want to put everybody into those groups or if you want to put them in as an individual basis. Completely up to you and what you would like to do as you configure it as an administrator. Going down, we just have the list of color combinations that you can change based upon what you like for your branding, for your eye, or if you want something to stand out and pop. Again, completely customizable to you. You can change it as you see fit. We also have some language settings here for you. We have a few language settings. If you would like to change the language, that will be displayed. What I'm going to do now is go show you the administrative time. The administrative time, as I mentioned before, is any time that you deem not chargeable. It still can be charged if you'd like, but we usually recommend it as sick time, vacation time, any time that is overhead. What you see here is just the list in chart form of the information. What I'm going to do is just open up one so I can show you a little bit of what we asked for and what can be displayed. Again, if you need more fields to be displayed, just edit the list, add some columns, and you'll be able to manipulate it as you see fit. Again, completely customizable, up to you all. You'll have a title, status, if it's always going to display on every timesheet. If it doesn't always display, you can uncheck it, and you can go down here to the Assign To, and it'll only display on the members that you have designated it to. You have a billing category. Again, the billing category opens up, and you can choose from the list. Again, you can add to that list if you like. If you don't see some that we give you, please feel free to add to it. We have the working type, and then we have the name of the project, task, or whatever you like the additional name to be. You have a planned work, so if your overhead does have a budget, you can add it there. And if it's billable or not billable, so we can track the solution. Again, it'll just cancel and take you back to the page. What we'll do is we'll go back to our list, and I'll show you the alerting feature. I talked earlier about alerts based upon reminders and overdues, and really anything you see necessary that you would like to send an alert on. Out of the box for the first time, you'll see that our alerts are disabled because as you're configuring the solution, there are times that an alert might be triggered, and we don't want you to be flooded with unnecessary alerts. So we enjoy, as a best practice, to keep them all disabled for you, and you all can go in at your leisure and turn on and off the ones that you would like to use inside the solution. You can also add new ones that you don't see here. These are just ones that we have seen throughout the years that the majority of people have asked for or use, so we give them for you. But if you'd like to make a new one, just go up here to the new item, and a new one will be made for you. Well, you can configure a new one to be made. What I'll do is I'm going to open one that we have created out of the box, just so you can see some of the information and how it kind of behaves. Again, you have where the lists are stored, you have what you want to alert on, so it'll fly out a option of lists, what triggers the alert, and how often an email gets sent out. Again, completely configurable to how you guys want to do it and what your needs are. We also have a camel query if you need to filter any of the criteria inside of your reporting lists. Our recipients can be configured as well, whether it be just the person who is being reminded, or the person and its manager, or some sort of other level that you need to report on. You can either look up through the alert list, or you can use email addresses that you designate throughout the tool. And then you actually have the mail format of what will be sent in each alert. Again, completely up to you. This is just our one for submitting a timesheet. Again, you can make them look as you want, or modify the ones we already have. You can do that here in our text designer, or you can change it to our HTML and actually use the HTML code to make it look and feel how you would like. Again, completely customizable and up to you all. What I'm going to do now is we'll continue going down the line of what we can do here. The auto-approved and the bulk approvers, I already showed you the permissions page where that comes from. Again, just put the username in those fields, as I showed earlier, and they'll be able to have auto-approved or bulk-approved timesheets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the columns to display. Again, I touched on this briefly when we're editing the timesheet configuration. If you would like to add a column here, this is where you would do so. But again, please go back and double check to make sure that they are being viewed in the order and displayed the way you would like through the timesheet configuration once you update here. Again, you can remove, you can add, you can make it look and feel how you would like for your company. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the create cost codes. I like to show all the cost configurations at one time. I feel it gives a better flow and a better idea of what we're trying to do and the logic we're trying to employ in our work and work variances and plan time. Just gives a better idea of what all we're trying to do for the tool and for you. What I clicked on was the timesheet resources. I've talked about the timesheet resources a few times now, and I showed you where it'll pull from inside of our timesheet entry. This is the list of all employees that will have to and can put in a timesheet. You'll have their username, their manager, and their secondary manager, the department that they report to, if they allow overtime or not, and the cost codes that they can charge to. What I'll do is I'll just edit the manager that we had earlier, just so I can give you an idea of what the information looks like that you can input. You can choose this department. Again, if you need to make more of those, please feel free, completely customizable. You have your username of the person, you have their manager and their secondary manager, and then you'll have a field for maximum unit. The maximum unit is for part-time employees. If you have an employee that can only work 20 hours or 30 hours, please just put in the percentage of work they're allowed to use, and our tool will automatically stop them from inputting any more time. This is just so you all don't have to micromanage your employees or have to watch over them when it comes to inputting their time. The tool will do that for you. And then we have a checkbox that will allow overtime or not. If it allows overtime, it'll just work as it does, and you can input as many hours as you like. If you disallow overtime, then it comes back to our work validation hours that I showed you earlier, where you can either validate by number of hours they can work in a day or the number of hours they can work in a week. Once they reach that limit, they'll no longer be able to access and input more time for that week. Below that are cost codes. These are the cost codes that an employee can report to over here on the right. Here are all the cost codes that will be inside of your enterprise. If your employee changes projects and needs to report to something else, you can just on the fly move the person or remove them if they're no longer working on that project or that designated cost code. Below, we've mentioned earlier, if you can put in an employee ID or a tax ID number, and you would put it down here in the resource ID field. Again, this can be any ID that you'd want, just to have a designation between your employees. Will be displayed on their timesheet and throughout the application. What I'm going to do now is go back, and I'm going to create some tasks so we can link them to our newly created timesheet resources. What you see here is the list chart of our tasks or projects, whatever you guys want to deem the term as, and however you want to budget off of. What I have here is a list of tasks for my enterprise. We have the name, the title, the start date, its due date, who they are assigned to, and the number of hours that are planned. What I'm going to do is just open one up for you so we can take a further look on what's inside. You have your title and your project name that you can enter, your start date and due date. Again, in order for this to appear on a timesheet, it must be within a date range of the project. If it falls out of scope, you can just come back here if you need to extend it and change the due date. Sometimes vendors are late or you just run a little long, so don't think it is uneditable. We make it so you can push further out that due date if things do come up. Underneath that, you have who's assigned to. Who is assigned to will be the only people that see this project or task on their timesheet. If you have 100 tasks that you have created, you don't want to see 100 tasks on your list. So we make it so it disregards the ones that are not directly submitted to you, so it reduces the clutter on your timesheet and you're not scrolling up and down through tasks that you do not have any involvement in. And then you have the planned working hours. This is the estimated time that you can budget off of. This is how we do our work variances and do our calculations. It's based on this number. Again, we have our estimated number, and then we'll have our actual number when you actually put it into the timesheet. And it'll do the math based upon this number that you have here. Again, if you ever need to edit this number, please just come back to your task list, and you can change the estimated number or planned work for your specific task. There was a question about whether or not you can put a percentage of different work that they've done in different departments or different tasks. And yes, you have the option to key in an hour for each task that's on the field. And also you can change the cost code for each task as well to report back. However, you can't put an actual percentage. You would have to just put the hours. So if you did 25% of your 8-hour day, you would have to put in 2 hours. You can't put in 25%. per se. But yes, you can split up your daily work that way. So with that, I'm going to go to our cost tracking, since we were done with our time tracking. We'll click on the first one to configure our options. We can select the currency of what you would like it to be in. We can enable cost tracking. That is going to be the math and the logic on the back end, doing all the calculations for you for budget and reporting reasons. Again, all done on the back end. Nothing has to be done by you except clicking the little checkbox. If you unclick, all the rest of the options go away. If you come back, then your cost tracking options come back. The cost code validation is what I spoke about earlier. In my environment, I made it so you had to put in a cost code for every task or every amount of time you ever put in. You can uncheck that if you don't need to report to the cost code every time. Then you'll be able to report to it or not report to it as you see fit. The drop-down will still be there. You can still access all your cost codes. It'll just no longer be mandatory. And then you can select your labor rate source. Again, this will be the amount of dollars per hour that you're going to charge per task hour against the estimated task. I'll show you how to set up that in a little bit in our rate source list. But here it's just asking if it's going to pull from the list inside of our time tracking management system, or if you're going to sync it up with our project management central application. Also, it's going to ask you if you would like to copy your cost data back to PM Central, so you can use that information in there as well. Below are our display cost data that we showed earlier in our work variance link that's underneath the submitted timesheets, so that a manager can view to make sure that they're still within range and scope of their tasks and budget. Here is where you can move the columns back and forth of what you want to see. If you don't need to see them all, just pull one back, or put it back if you do need to see it again. Again, completely customizable to you. If you add more columns to your display cost tracking, they'll appear here. Just add them as you go. Again, completely customizable to your needs. Next, we're going to create cost codes. I know I skipped that earlier. I just like to do it here for this purpose, just so I can show you all the cost stuff at one time. As you saw earlier in our timesheet resources, they all had a cost code associated with them. Here is the global cost codes for your enterprise. Let me just click on one real quick so we can take a better look. And what you'll have here is the title of the cost code. I usually try to keep them pretty short, whether it be text or a number, so they fit in that slide down very nicely. And then a description of what the actual cost code is referring to. You can give it a fiscal year. If it's this year or if it's a range of years, you can put that in as well. And then that will be listed as a selectable cost code for your timesheet resources. We'll go back again to our cost tracking on our left. And I'd like to just point out that all of our cost tracking is mandatory. So our logic can run in the background and do its math. We do need the fields populated. Whether or not you deem to use them in your environment, that's up to you, but we do need something filled out before you go. And again, we have the mark as completed on the side as well, just like the other one. Now we're going to enter our labor rates that I talked about earlier. And this is how it actually calculates the budget for each of your tasks or projects. What it's going to do is it's going to multiply your rate based upon the hours worked against the cost code that you're charging off of. Again, let me just edit one. So you select your cost code from your list of cost codes that you have. Choose whether or not it's billable, and then give it its hourly rate. And that's it. Our application does the rest for you. Just need a little bit of information that you provide, and our tool will do the rest for you. And the last configuration that we have here is just to add the cost codes to your timesheet resource. It's just double checking to make sure that you're going to add them to each of your person over here on the left. And again, you can choose whether to add them or remove them as you see fit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring us back to our slide deck, and I'm going to wrap things up for you. Again, at this time, if you have any further questions, please feel free to let us know, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And if you have anything else that comes up at the end of the day, please feel free to email us. I'll show you our email at the end of our time together. So what did we do today? I showed you time tracking management as a web-based standalone system. We were able to submit a timesheet, submit a manager's timesheet for auto-approval, and we're able to approve a timesheet. We're able to look at that timesheet and review it as well. We're able to see some internal costs and some work variance calculations. We are able to report upon those internal costs and work variance populated items as well. And we're able to go along and show you some customizable alerts and just our alert tool as well. If you would like to evaluate time tracking management or any of our other products, please feel free to do so. We give you a sandbox just in case you cannot install our application on site. Our sandbox comes in 2013 or 2010. And also you can ask for an install file, and you can actually set it up in your environment and see how it interacts with your information. We also have other webinars that you can go through. If you go on our webinar webpage, you can get our webinars already on demand, or you can sit down and go to a scheduled one like this today. We have a Workflow Conductor webinar. We have our Project Management Central webinar that ties into this time tracking one on a little deeper level. And then we have our Knowledge Management and our Community Central webinars. We also provide some services for you all. We can help you install the Bamboo products. We can customize our products within reason, but they are customizable to fit your needs. And also we have some training services, whether they be group trainings, individual trainings for you guys, if you choose to want that. And if you have any further questions that you think of later, please let me know. Our email is right there on the bottom of the page. Our website is there as well if you need to see any more about our time tracking management solution or any other products that Bamboo Solutions does provide for your SharePoint needs.